Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, Tag12, however you want to call me, I don't really care, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Today we're going to be reviewing the Skoda T40. Don't worry, it's not going to be like the IS6 video, which just took like an hour, and it was like a huge video. We're just going to be making one video with one gameplay. There's not going to be a massive waste of time, just wasted on additional gameplay. But first and foremost, let's take a look at this tank. Let's take a look at this skin that I have. I think this skin was somewhere in one of the boxes for Christmas, or I'm not sure, it was an event skin. Look at the back, it looks really cool. It looks like everything is 3D printed, although it is kind of a 2D skin, because obviously at the back, the tools and the vents, the vents over there, they're all still, they're on the vehicle even without the skin. So it looks really cool, especially from the back. It looks like it's kind of a 3D skin because there are actually 3D elements to it. But before we jump into that, let's just take a look at the ranked season, because this video today I was only making because there's a certain reward vehicle currently that hopefully pops up in just a second, because there's a ceasefire going on, because I'm recording this at a very weird time for the North American server. But this Skoda T45 is the heavy tank version of the Skoda T45 that I'm currently driving. This is the tier 7 heavy, and this is going to be the very first premium heavy tank, or the very first heavy tank for the Czechoslovakian tech tree. So the thing is, I decided to make a video about the other vehicle because they are very similar in their stature and their look. But the thing is just, this thing is so dumb. It costs you about, let's check real fast, let's check back. I think it costs you about over 10,000 bonds. So it's absolutely not worth your time. And this Skoda T40, excuse me, it wasn't the Skoda T45. The Skoda T40 was a tier 6 premium tank that was introduced into the game in the year 2015. I still remember watching a video from Quickie Baby and then picking it up myself. You can see we're running a pretty skilled crew that I run on my TVP T50-51, the tier 10 version. And yeah, everyone has 3 skills except for Rodney Julius Kastner, this bloody idiot, who hasn't been skilled as much and is also from the TVP VTU. So you have a lot of crew members on this tank. It's also quite a large tank. If we just go from the looks, it's rather tall. That's something you'll notice if you compare it to, let's say, another vehicle that is quite flat, the Cromwell Berlin. The Cromwell Berlin does shrink by quite a bit if you compare it, because those vehicles are very similar in a lot of aspects, especially the armor is very, very similar with both of these tanks. But the Skoda T40 is just quite a large tank. It's very tall, very big profile. So why a review of the Skoda T40? Well, to be fair, I just felt like it. I was playing a couple of tier 6 premium tanks, and I was playing the Skoda T40, and I thought, you know what, I have this tank for such a long time now, haven't really done a lot with it, haven't played a lot of games in it, haven't done a video about it. Let's make a review about this tank, because I still have enough games in it to, to give my kind of perfect view on this tank, certainly. No, my view is not perfect, obviously. My perspective and my judgment is not divine, so always look into several different sources, check them and see if the vehicle really is something for you. I can just say out of my personal experience, I like the Skoda T40. It's a tank that I've enjoyed quite a bit. So the Skoda T40 is a tier 6 Czechoslovakian medium tank that has an 88mm gun that is actually tier 7 material. This is a gun that the tier 7 and the tier 8 have as well. Not the exact same gun, but if we go into the Czechoslovakian tech tree and we take a look at the T34-100, it also has, no, actually it has a 85mm gun, excuse me. I don't want to buy the TVP, but the TVP has this 88mm gun, this very first version, and it's almost identical to the Skoda T40. Now the thing with this gun is just that it is actually quite a decent gun. It's pretty damn impressive at tier 6 that you can have a gun of this caliber with these kind of stats. It has 220 alpha damage, so it's not going to be as good as the 90mm guns, which have 240 alpha damage. 145mm of penetration is not going to be that impressive against tier 8 vehicles, but this tank does faces a lot. Faces from tier 4 all the way to tier 8 vehicles. If you're really lucky, you're going into the tier 4 games. If you're really unlucky, you're getting into a tier 8 game. But if you have to face the tier 8s, you still have heat shells that have 200mm of pen. And that 200mm of pen is pretty damn impressive, if you ask me. If we take a look at the shell fire, the shell velocity, you can see that the AP shell flies 773 meters per second, and the heat shell should be, it's a bit worse, 600 meters per second. So this tank is not going to be your best sniper for very long distances. If you want to, pre-aim, if you want to have a little bit of a lead, you have to give quite a bit of lead because this tank does not have the very fastest shell velocity out there. Especially if you consider it to, or if you compare it to the Cromwell B, it has APCR shells. This tank has heat shells. I much rather have the heat shells than the APCR shells. So the rate of fire with an 88mm gun is quite decent, 9.48 rounds per minute. That's about 6.3 seconds reload time. The turret traverse speed isn't as great, 34.89. That is rather mediocre for a medium tank. Same with the gun depression. 6 degrees is not very much. 6 degrees of gun depression is not something you'd write home about, and it's not something that is giving you a certain edge in combat, especially with the height of this tank. There are some very awkward scenarios where you're going to be looking at some very awkward engagements where you only have 6 degrees and the enemy might just have like 8 degrees and you have to deal with it. But also at the same time, having that kind of height advantage will give you the opportunity to shoot over ridge lines, but also get shot at from ridge lines or over ridge lines. You have 20 degrees of gun elevation, which is pretty good. You have an aim time of 1.92 seconds until it's fully aimed in. I do have quite a few things to up the aim time to make it better, or to decrease the aim time. And it's basically, you can see the equipment I'm running, improved ventilations, I'm running enhanced gun laying drive. This vehicle unfortunately does not have the vertical stabilizers. Somehow, I'm not sure why, but vertical stabilizers are not in this tank, although it is a covered vehicle, which is kind of weird if you ask me. The dispersion is actually not too bad. 0.34 at 100 meters is pretty damn good. For tier 6 medium tank, that is quite accurate if you ask me, and you notice that in game. So this 88mm gun is quite punchy, it is quite reliable, it has a good rate of fire, very decent DPM, so you can do quite a lot of things with this tank if you just look at the gun. The thing is just that the survivability isn't as good as the gun shows it to be. So 780 hit points, they have increased it by I think about 30 hit points from 750. Used to be 750 until they reworked tier 1 to tier 6. And it has 65mm of frontal armor, 40 on the side, 40 on the rear, no, 30 on the rear, and on the hull, on the turret, it's actually 65 at the front, 40 on the side, and 40 at the rear. This tank is very boxy, so it's very flat. The frontal plate is almost 90 degrees angled, so anything that has somehow enough pen to go through 65mm is going to be able to go right through your tank. You don't have any armor. If we enable armor viewer, you can see that your armor is effective like 70mm at the front at this angle. Maybe your gun mantlet is quite thick. It's at certain angles, at certain positions, it's 200mm thick, but it's not as big so that it covers your entire turret. You can see that your tank is really, really weakly armored. The only thing is that you have a little bit of an angle over here. Also, the turret is a bit angled, so maybe if you turn your turret and somebody is aiming at this cheek right here, they might bounce off, or if somebody is shooting at you from a weird angle at like, your frontal plate. Okay, the armor viewer is still active. You might bounce some, but it's really flat, and your armor is not going to hold up. So you don't even have to waste any time with the armor with this tank. It's not well armored, and it's not going to survive a lot of incoming fire. Mobility wise, this tank is pretty damn well situated. It actually weighs 40 tons. This thing weighs 40 tons. That is actually quite a lot of weight for a tank at tier 6, and it is a big tank. So like from the height, it's quite large. It has a 770 horsepower engine. With the turbocharger, it's quite a bit faster, so it has a top speed of 55 kilometers per hour and 23 kilometers per hour in reverse. The specific power to weight ratio is almost 20 tons, which is pretty damn good. And the traverse speed is 43.73 degrees per second, which is, I'd say, at the upper end of mediocre. It's almost good, but it's not good there yet. It's not there yet. So mobility-wise, this tank certainly has quite a few things that work for it. So if we sum it up so far, this tank has a great gun handling. It has great mobility. It doesn't have any armor, so the armor is really going to be a problem. So it's one of those vehicles that it's a medium tank that can be quite effective if you play it like a medium, but you don't put it into those very heavy engagements as a frontline warrior. It's not going to be performing very well at that kind of job. Concealment-wise, this vehicle, well, you can see we have a good crew, we have vents on it. I think the standard concealment without anything isn't as impressive. Still, we have 460 points, so you can make it work if you want to. Spotting wise, I think the base view range is 350 meters, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's 370 meters, excuse me. So you can increase that definitely if you put some equipment on it. Spotting is certainly not a strong suit of this vehicle, and I would not put it as a scout or in the category of a fast medium tank that could act as a scout. Obviously, you can improve upon certain things. You can add binoculars, you can add let me check real fast what they're called, coated optics, and you can train your crew to have the best kind of view range. Then you could work with this tank a little bit, but I would still say there are better options out there than just play a light tank, or maybe the Cromwell B, because I remember that the Cromwell B actually has pretty decent view range, if I'm not mistaken. So nope, I take it back. I remember wrongly. So 370 meters view range, yeah. I think at tier 6 it's not the worst, but it's not the best either. So without further ado, let's wrap up all the characterization and jump over to the gameplay. So the gameplay that we're going to be using for this review is on the map Empire's Border. This is one of the 2 Chinese maps, I think, that is involved tanks. Empire's Border and Pearl River. And I think Pearl River certainly is a map that is balanced at the moment. Empire's Border, on the other hand, is a bit of a trash map. I know it's a map that looks really awesome with the Great Wall of China and with, you know, all of the different mountains and rice fields and everything. Just screams basically Asia. The problem is just that this map is not very well balanced. The team in the south, which we're currently facing since we're in the north, has a much better way and a much easier time to go up that hill than we have. So Wargaming did say they wanted to rework this map completely, and they really need to do that. So we're playing in the Skoda T40, as already mentioned, since the review is about this tank. And we're in a tier 6 matchup. Now, as already mentioned, this tank does not have a lot of armor. It is quite fast. The mobility on this tank is quite formidable. And it is a vehicle that will get you from point A to point B quite quickly. The real star, in my opinion, though, is certainly the 88mm gun. Coupled with the mobility, this is a really decent tank. In a lot of scenarios, you can really work this tank very well. You have a very high rate of fire, or a decent rate of fire, good DPM, and you have decent amount of penetration, great accuracy, I think, for an 88mm gun. Decent aim time, and overall, the only thing that you're lacking with this vehicle is the armor. Armor is not really good, and the view range isn't the best either. but as a tier 6 medium tank, the view range might not be of the most importance. So right here, what you can see immediately is that I do not want to push any further because there are a T78 and a P43 over there hiding. But what we want to do right here is to annihilate this Easy 8, this M4A3E8. And you can just see how quickly we can take care of him. 2 shots, quick succession, 500 damage done. That's what you can expect of this tank. Now with the accuracy of 0.34 at 100 meters, this vehicle certainly can snipe at distances. Especially for a tier 6, that isn't too bad, right? Unfortunately, the armor is not going to be holding up. The T150 just spotted us and hit us. Unluckily for us, we are not able to actually spot that T150. And at the same time now, a P43 Biz just drove by. I thought that I was going to be able to spot him while sitting here. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The P43 puts a big shell into us. The T78 does one as well. And you can see that we're down to 150 HP. That is something that will be happening in this tank, and that you have to be very careful of. That's why you cannot play this tank as aggressively as you could play certain other tanks. For example, the T34-85. As you can see, we have a T34-85M in our team. Or the Thunderbolt. This tank does not have the armor. It's like a Cromwell. That's why you have to, really stick to the flanks, stay hidden, do not be too aggressive, do not be the hero that takes all the shots. It's not going to end well for you. You want to be able to use this gun. You want to be the one that's supporting your vehicles. So right here you can see just a massive amount of damage that we can deal to this T150. I'm afraid that this P43 and the T78 will make a move for me. But I need to take out this T150 because he spotted me. So I take him out. We've done 1,567 damage. It's pretty damn good for a tier 6 vehicle. And I'm waiting for the P43 and the T78. What I'm doing right here is I'm speculating that they're going to be pushing me since I do not have a lot of HP. That's exactly what happens. Luckily for me, the P43 pushes by himself, and now I'm just waiting for the T78. Now, in this situation right here, I actually just bounced the shell from the T78. The T78, let's move on over to the T78. That thing is basically a Hellcat reworked a little bit, but with a 90mm gun. This is a 90mm gun. I think the pen on the 90mm gun is about at 170mm. We have a 65mm thickness of our armor. The very funny thing is that he actually bounces exactly that spot which I did cover in the preview before we went into the game. So as I mentioned, the turret of this tank is only 65mm thick at the front. It's very big, it's a big target, but with the RNG sometimes, if you're unlucky and you do not have the best aim time or the best bloom, you might just shoot the side over here. This turret at the side is 110mm thick. I think up to maybe 130. So I was very lucky right there that this T78 just caught me at a time where I moved back. He shot my turret right there and he managed to bounce my turret. That is something you don't see very often. That's something you won't see in this tank at all. Luckily for us, our reload time is really, really good, but I do not finish him off. I move back forward, and I do put one shell into his turret. That's what you can do with this tank, because the gun, the accuracy, everything about the handling feels really, really nice. This tank feels really nice if you like medium tanks, if you like tanks that are really reliable in their way of shooting and in the gun handling department. This tank really does fit the category of being a good vehicle that really can deliver quite a bit of power and damage if you have the nerve of playing without too much armor. And we have a Thunderbolt over there, and we're going to try to flank him from behind. Our reload time is, remembered at 6.3 seconds. The Thunderbolt has about a reload time of 3 seconds maybe, or 2.4, or I don't even know. It's a 76mm gun, it's a pea shooter. The thing is just, with RNG, with the low rolls that you get from time to time, we would have been able to take out this Thunderbolt if we had 2 high rolls, but unfortunately we had 2 low rolls, or at least 1 low roll with 185, and the other one was 218, which is basically the standard roll that you have on the Skoda T40. But still, we ended up doing 2,493 damage. In total, it was 2,741, and we managed to hold off several tanks from pushing, and at the same time assist our team in the channel where they were getting outflanked. So this tank can be really, really good. So let's talk about my final verdict. Let's skip back real fast. So we have a tank that actually is not destroyed, and we can talk about the Skoda T40 before it was knocked out. The Skoda T40 is one of those vehicles that at tier 6 is really a good all-rounder. The only thing that it really is lacking is the armor department. This is a tank that if I would like, if I like to play medium tanks, with, the main characteristics of what a medium tank should be, which is mobile, which is with decent armament and maybe decent spotting, and then just a little bit of armor, I think that is a perfect medium tank for me. Mobility is way more important for me than the armor that I have on my medium tank, because if I play a medium tank, I want to be able to be flexible. I do not care about my armor too much. My armor is a nice added on feature if it is available, but the armor is not the essential part of a medium tank, because your armor is going to be the mobility, your smart plays, your brain, being able to decide when to push, when to flank, when to beware, when to sacrifice HP. That is exactly what you need to learn when you're playing a medium tank, which is, like, all of these things are even more important when you're learning to play a light tank. So if we talk about that, I think this medium tank puts pretty much a nice mark next to all of these checkboxes and is a pretty damn good investment. It's a tier 6 premium tank, yes. It's a Czechoslovakian tier 6 premium tank. They don't have any tier 8 premium medium tank that is with a single shot gun. The only tier 8 premium tank they have is the Skoda T27, which goes into the same kind of category as the T50, the Skoda T50, which is also a pretty damn impressive vehicle, both the Skoda T50 and the T27. But I think the Skoda T40 is a pretty damn cool tank. It's probably one of my favorites at tier 6 with the Cromwell, because they both have like that kind of gameplay of being very dynamic vehicles, very dynamic medium tanks. This thing just has a bigger gun, 88mm gun at tier 6 is a pretty damn nice tool. You're gonna do a lot of alpha damage for, being a tier 6 medium tank, and also your rate of fire is pretty good. So I'd say this tank is something that if you're in doubt and you're not really sure if this does fit your playstyle and you like medium tanks, well, absolutely go for it, because it's a great vehicle. If you don't like medium tanks and you prefer the heavy variants, you like to be more on the front line, being the pudging, the hammering and fighting kind of vehicle, and you're expecting a medium tank that can hold its own against several vehicles and rely on its armor, this is not going to be the tank for you. I would say this shouldn't be the line that you should choose. You shouldn't be playing medium tanks, or at least you should be playing maybe Soviet medium tanks, because they do have that armor that you don't have here. So yeah, I'd say it's a pretty damn good investment, and I'm gonna cut this video right now. Hopefully you have a good one. Until then, tell me all about it. What do you think about the Skoda T40? And I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, have a good one.